Hi everyone, thanks for joining. So I'm going to be talking today about PREreview and the usage of Crowdin to be able to translate our site into various other languages. So right now, if you go to preview.org, you do have the ability to change which language you'd like it to appear in. So currently our options are US English, Latin American Spanish, and Brazilian Portuguese. So if I choose one of these other languages, such as Spanish, we see this entire site translated. So how does this happen? So we use a piece of software called Crowdin, which is available as a online platform for translation of various projects, including websites. So, yeah, Crowdin is a provider of this. We evaluated various options when we were looking at who we could use because there's a bunch of different people in this kind of area. Crowdin had a pretty good open source offering, and the feature set seemed to match what we want. So yeah, we have a open project on Crowdin now where you can get involved. So on the Crowdin site, there's a whole bunch of information around what Crowdin is, about who uses it. But if we scroll all the way down, unfortunately this link is a little bit hidden. There is an explore public projects link in the footer. So if we click on this, we can see there are private projects on Crowdin, so commercial organizations who want to kind of keep their stuff in-house and deal with professional translators and things, or there are open projects. So there's a whole bunch of here in a whole bunch of different categories. You might see some popular names that you may have heard of, for example, games such as Minecraft or software such as GitLab and Mastodon. They all use Crowdin for their translations, as do, if I look for PREreview, here we are. So there is an open project here for PREreview, so we can translate the site through this. And people can get involved, they can help us out with various things. So if I go through to our project, so this is the PREreview.org project on Crowdin that's available in the languages that we've enabled so far. So we can see the Brazilian Portuguese and Latin American Spanish that is currently available, but we're also starting to look at new languages, for example, African French. So on kind of our dashboard for the project here, we can see kind of the state of our translations. So if we were to look at Brazilian Portuguese, for example, we can see that there are lots of, the little individual pieces of text on the web page that are translated are called strings. We have translated 1,500 of them in total. There are still some awaiting approval. So we actually auto-translate any new pieces of text. We use OpenAI to do it. However, we always want to make sure that a human actually verifies that this makes sense, and it is also done in the fashion that we would like it to be done, such as our policies around things like gender inclusive language, and just making sure that terminology is. We'd never want to trust machine translation entirely. So yeah, someone does have to approve it. So there are a few strings still left waiting for approval. So these ones are not displayed on the site yet, but all the ones that have. So for Brazilian Portuguese at the moment, 75% of our strings have been translated and approved and are live right now. We have set up African French as a new project, which the state so far is nothing's been translated. So this is brand new. We've not enabled the OpenAI automatic translation for all the existing strings so far, just because there's certain things we want to discuss around how do we do this stuff such as gender inclusive language, but also how do we, what word do we use for preprint? What term do we use to represent a PREreview? That kind of thing. But it's in Crowdin, so it is available to go and have a look at. So if I click on the language itself, so the PREreview site is split up into a whole bunch of different files that kind of group and then kind of represent a different area of the site. For example, we can see one called homepage. So as you might imagine, this contains the pieces of text that appear on the homepage. So if I were to go and click on this, Crowdin is going to want me to log in at this point. So it's free to create a Crowdin account. You can connect it to other accounts such as Google or Facebook or whatever. But you can also set up your own password. So for this purpose, I've set up a demo user that we can go and look in. So I've already created. So I'm going to log in as this now. Okay. So this is now the Crowdin editor, which there is a lot here. It is really powerful. It Probably takes a bit of time for familiarity, and there is some guidance available on the Crowdin site about how to use it, but I'll just try and go through some basics now. So this is looking at our African French so far, which there are no translations. So down the left here, we can see our source strings. So these are pieces of text you might recognize from the PREreview homepage. So for example, our slogan of open preprint reviews for all researchers. You'll see the word preprint has a dotted underline here, if I zoom in slightly. So we have created a glossary for our translations where certain words that are important, we kind of try and define what they are so we can provide some context for you in the interface, but also some agreed translations and things. So we make sure we're using consistent terminology. So you'll see these highlighted a few times in various places. There's a whole bunch of options for each. So if I'm currently selected this string, there's a whole bunch of options down the right-hand side. This top one shows the current kind of context for this particular string, so we can provide some piece of information to go alongside it. So we'll see here tagline use on the homepage, open preprint reviews in the open to the community sense, and any translations that already exist so far. So there are no African French translations so far, and this string isn't that useful because it's Crowdin is not suggesting things for us. So maybe if I go and look at one of these other ones, here we go. So review a preprint button. Crowdin, because we're an open project on there, we will see potential translations that other people have used in their projects. So it's suggesting these as various options. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different like spellings and gender usage. You have the option to go and use one of these, can be used for inspiration and things. We can choose to use them or not. We can also see other languages for this one string. So if I scroll down slightly, we can see what it was translated to in our other languages. So Brazilian Portuguese and Latin American Spanish. In case they're useful. Sometimes there are similarities between languages, but yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is actually switch to another language with more information in it, just because it will provide a bit more of a kind of real-world experience here. So if I come back out, and if I were to go and look at Brazilian Portuguese, if I go and look at the same file, so our homepage, what I'm going to see now is in these two columns on the left-hand side is more information. So each of these source strings has a corresponding translation entry. So we have a translation for everything, but not everything is approved. You'll see a subtle difference down the left-hand side here. So some of these strings have a green tick. If you hover over it, it says the word approved. So these are the ones that are live on the website now. They have an approved translation. These ones here with the blue box, it says translated. So these are the ones where OpenAI or a community member has translated a string for us, but someone has not yet approved it, so it's not been made live. If we look at one of our strings, such as for our slogan, so here we can see inside the Brazilian Portuguese translation, there's a bunch of alternatives. So this one here with this like magic icon is the one that was generated by OpenAI. So as it's AI generated, it has a little indicator to say that it was. And if you hover over, it'll provide a bit more information. And then we have one of our translators has added in a couple of alternatives, but has also chosen to approve one of these. So each source string can have one approved translation at a time, and that is the one that will appear live on our website. It's possible to change them. For example, I could go in and suggest a new translation, or I could choose to upvote or downvote a particular translation. Say if I disagreed, I can talk about it as well. We can also, there's options, for example, to be able to discuss an approval. So there is each string has a chat associated with it, which runs cross-language. So you can, if maybe something in the string isn't particularly clear, or if someone's got a question about something, we can discuss it. This second tab here with the comment icon is the place where we can have discussions. So some of our translators previously, when they were translated into Spanish and Portuguese, had some questions, so we could interact and come up with things. If you have a question about it, you can post your own thing. And if you want to label it as an issue, for example, that could be something like there is a mistake in the source string. Maybe we've accidentally spelled something wrong in English or something. Or there's lack of contextual information. It's not clear what we should actually be translating or how we should be translating these words. Or if something's been approved, you can say this translation is wrong. That's okay. Like it's things happen, and yeah, it's we rely on humans to go through and actually work out all these things. There are some slight complexities with certain strings. So they have, for example, our slogan has this kind of yellow highlighted bit with a swoosh. So on our homepage, we have our fancy red underline here. So that refers to, that's the bit that doesn't get translated. It just wraps the word that should have this thing applied to it. And there are some that involve numbers, which I'm not going to go through in detail now, but there's a certain way of being able to handle pluralization. And given different languages have different pluralization rules, there's might have a different structure. So these are a good case for building on what OpenAI can generate for us and then tweaking it as needed. But yeah, that's a bit of a language-specific topic to go into. So that's a very quick tour of the Crowdin editor. There are lots of different displays. So there are lots of options for being able to flick between different files. You can hide bits as you need. There are a bunch of, okay, they've reorganized their view a little bit. Here we go. This is it. Underside view. There is their comfortable setting, which changes it a little bit. So it puts your kind of strings and current translations down the left-hand side and shows you what you're working on in the middle. If I select one of these, so this looks kind of the same. It's just reorganized a little bit differently on the page. So we've got our context still here at the top. We've got a translation here, which I can edit. If I press enter, that will create it as a new suggested translation. I'm not going to because this is live. But yes, you're free to edit here and suggest a new one if, for example, something's different. And again, you can see the other ones that Crowdin is suggesting for us based on other people. So, for example, you can see the difference here between a US English and a UK English spelling. This is based around the kind of source string as well, being slightly different. Yeah, so it's very powerful, this Crowdin editor. There's a lot here and possibly a little bit overwhelming. So we do provide another way of being able to look at pre-review through Crowdin's eyes. So alongside our live website, you may know that we already run a sandbox instance of our site. So this allows you to experiment with publishing a pre-review without actually publishing it for real. We also run a third instance called translate.prereview.org. So this is a special version of our sandbox site that has Crowdin built into it. So I'm already logged in, so it's taking me straight in actually. But it might be a little difficult to see over the video, but if I zoom in slightly, you'll see bits of text have a coloured border around them. So in this case, I'm looking at it in Portuguese, and this bit of text has a green border around it. So it's green because it's an improved translation. If I hover over it, you can see a little pencil icon appear. So if I click on that, we'll see part of the Crowdin interface appear. So that allows me to select what this current translation is and see all the same information that we'd saw through Crowdin itself, such as all the suggested translations, the existing translations, the ones I could upvote and downvote, or maybe suggest something new if I spotted something a little bit wrong. You will also see ones that have not yet been approved. So there is a link here, which hopefully this comes out over the video, is actually surrounded in a blue line. So this is a translation that has not yet been approved. So if you look at preview.org, the live site now, you won't see this string because it's not yet approved. But on the translate site, we can see it. So yeah, most of these things on this site are clickable. The entire site is here. It runs in the exact same way as our sandbox, that you can run through the whole process of publishing a review and things. It just won't actually publish it for real. But you can There is also a little menu here, which you can pop up various options for Crowdin. So, for example, you can have access to all the strings and you can search through them and things, but the one that's maybe interesting is this kind of little settings icon here. If I click on this, you can choose which language you want to see it in. So I can quickly flick to what Crowdin's understanding of Spanish is. So again, these are ones surrounded by green because they're approved translations. Or I could switch to African French. If I do this, however, we know there are no translations yet. So what we're actually seeing is things surrounded in red. And then they fall back to our source language, which is US English. So currently, we don't have translations for these things in African French. We would have to add them. If I were to go and add a translation, this is as it's acting live inside our site, we can see it here, what's happening. So you can preview it. So you can see it in context, which is kind of more powerful than actually going through the slightly abstracted Crowdin interface. If I wanted to go and suggest it, yeah, I could do it for real. I could suggest this as a translation. I'm not going to because, again, this is a real thing, and that's obviously not a real translation. But you've got the ability to do all the things you can do through the Crowdin interface directly through our site and being able to see them in context, which is generally quite powerful. So yeah, our project is open. Anyone is welcome to join, suggest. You can come in if you see a translation that's maybe a little bit wrong or you've got a suggestion, you can let us know. You can also helpful to go in and upvote and downvote things. If you don't necessarily agree with the translation, yeah, maybe you downvote it. If you agree with something, upvote. This feedback's good. And we're looking to expand our community of people that can help us out with approving translations as well. So we have certain things that we want to adhere to. I mentioned things like gender inclusive language and what we use for particular terms and things. So yeah, we're looking for community members to help us out with approving these translations, making sure they adhere to the kind of the language that we as a preview in our community would like to use. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, please let us know at help@preereview.org, or you can use our Slack community channel.